Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. My original plan for this reading week was to continue and hopefully finish Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry for June on the Range. I wanted to at least somewhat participate in June on the Range, a new BookTube reading event created by Michael K. Vaughan, and I selected Lonesome Dove, which Steve Donahue and Mayberry Book Club are also doing a read-along of this month. So my plan again was to continue Lonesome Dove until I hopefully would have finished it today. To recap, Lonesome Dove is an epic western about a group of Texas lawmen, Texas Rangers who have since retired and have gone into cattle ranching near the fictional town of Lonesome Dove on the Texas-Mexican border at the Rio Grande. One day, a former colleague, an ex-Texas Ranger himself named Jake Spoon, comes to Lonesome Dove running from the law. He tells his former colleagues, Colin McRae, that Montana is prime cattle country. And this lights a fire in Captain Call to sort of become more actively ambitious. He's a hard worker, yes, but he's not terribly ambitious. And Spoon's stories of Montana light a fire, and Call wants to start moving. He wants to move to Montana. So he and his poultry cattle company rustle some horses and some cattle from Mexico, and sort of begin to put together a larger crew to move to Montana. At the same time, Jake Spoon has become involved with Lorena, the town prostitute, who everybody seems to be in love with. And she wants to go to San Francisco. So pretty much everybody. So Lorena joins the drive to an extent, to accompany the drive up to a point where she and Spoon will diverge and move on to San Francisco. Like I talked about last week, I wasn't loving. So when I did weekly reads last week, I wasn't loving Lonesome Dove. I didn't know if I even liked it. I really liked the descriptions, the sense of place. I think McMurtry does a wonderful job with the sense of place, and I also think he does a pretty good job with the tensions, particularly in what set action sequences I read. But there are a number of things about Lonesome Dove that pisses me off. First and foremost is the romance. Every male character seems to be in love with Lorena. And that love, that infatuation really, is crippling. Just positively crippling. And it's like a narrative black hole. Particularly like an example was Dish, who is infatuated with Lorena and desperate to have time with her, and is wildly jealous of Spoon for his time with her. But there's a scene when Dish realizes what's going on that you think, okay, he's going to finally kind of end it. He's going to kind of emotionally, intellectually end it. He's done with this. He'll find someone else. No, he goes right back to her. It's like, really? And it's like every male character. It's infuriating. And it kind of makes it hard to tell characters apart. So that's one thing that annoyed me or pissed me off. And that is one of my berserk buttons when it comes to fiction in general. I can't stand this crippling infatuation that seemed to pop up in so many novels. My second issue with the book is the padding. I know when Steve talked about Lonesome Dove in his introductory video on Sunday, that the writing style is such that you kind of want Lonesome Dove to go on. That the padding is one of the charms. And I didn't see it. I'm like, did we really need so many pages talking about that sign? Or backtracking it? I didn't like it. And third, a lot of the dialogue seems too staged for my taste. It reads more like they're in a stage production than they're actually having conversations with each other. So that bugged me. And so that's largely where I was on Friday. And then Saturday happened, and basically, talk about crippling infatuations. Lorena has one with Spoon, although she has the sense to recognize that this relationship is about as bad as most of her relationships have been. But it's just that, and then, Dish, and then we're finally in part 2 introduced to July Johnson. I'm not entirely sure how the hell he became sheriff of Fort Smith, but he's like, and by the time I got back to the cattle drive, I'm like, is this over? I want this to be over. Okay, I'm done. So I bailed on Lonesome Dove. Incomprehensible as that might be. I did promise Steve that I will eventually at some point give this book another go. When, I don't know, but I do think I have unfinished business, but when I'll get to it, I don't know. Let's move over there. So that was Saturday. So I kind of decided to go ahead and start on my my queer history readings for this month. Last week I showed 3 works of queer history that I wanted to read, and it didn't turn out well at all. So on Sunday I started Queer Legacies by John D'Amelio. This is a collection of biographical and organizational sketches or synopses of various queer people and queer organizations in Chicago. And it's dull and poorly written, and it's just I didn't like this at all, so I bailed on it. And then on Monday I bailed on A Very Queer Family Indeed by Simon Goldhill. This is a family biography, even though Goldhill would argue against that because he really does not like biographies or something. But anyway, it's about the Bensons, whose patriarch was an Archbishop of Canterbury, and whose wife was a lesbian. And as far as the documentary evidence shows, none of the children were heterosexual. That they never had any heterosexual sex. They were all effectively Gold Star gays. And the family itself was also incredibly toxic. And you would think such a book would be a hoot to read because there's so much scandal and all of that. But the prose is just so bad. Just so bad. So I vote on that too. Although perhaps in A Very Queer Family Indeed's defense, I did have a very bad Monday. I had some family drama that took place, and so that really put me out in a bad mood, and really I had to go do some painting. So I did do some painting to kind of calm me down, and it quite worked. And I'll show you after I talk about the books. So backtracking to Sunday, and also peppered throughout the rest of the week because my reading plans were effectively shot to hell this week. I did some poetry rereads. So on Sunday, I reread Wonderama by Catherine Doty. This is a collection of poetry that is very personal, very sort of gross out at times, set in the 1960s in Paterson. And when I first read this collection last year, I didn't quite care for much of it. I mean, there were a few poems that I quite liked, but this reread, my estimation of this collection has improved somewhat. And I also read I Thought There Would Be More Vols by Sara Ryan. Again, this is a very personal poetry collection that oftentimes uses nature imagery, particularly wolves, throughout the poem or throughout the collection. And I liked this collection more than I did Wonderama when I first read it last year. And again, the collections my estimation of this collection has risen. Quite enjoyed a lot of the poems in this one. And then on Wednesday, I reread Flyover Country by Austin Smith. This is a collection of poems, some personal, some not, that are for the most part about the rural Midwest. And when I read this collection last year, I quite enjoyed it. It was a favorite of mine. And this rereading, it significantly rose in my estimation. I really love this collection, and I'm looking forward to finding more by Austin Smith. And then yesterday, I reread Stars in My Eye by Edward Field. This is an older collection. This came out in the 70s, and it's about film. And a lot of the poems are lyrical poems about these various film topics, or inspired by actors and roles and stuff. But a lot of the poems are also narrative poems that cobble together the plots of numerous classic film. And I quite enjoyed them. Edward Field has been one of my favorite poets, although I think in my most recent readings of his work that I think he's quite uneven as a poet. So some of the poems in here, take for example White Jungle Queen. Except for maybe a few lines, it's a bit wonky. Although I think that's the intent, is to make the poem wonky. But in this collection, I really love Whatever happened to make Caspar? That's a fantastic point. Particularly the ending is wonderful. The Life of Joan Crawford. That one is quite good. Book of the Dead, although that one's maybe a bit risque. Stars MIA has some really good lines. Oh yeah. So I kind of enjoyed rereading Stars MIA as well. So on Tuesday, I'm jumping all over the place here. I decided to read some manga, which I'd been planning on reading later on in the month. So I read the first 2 volumes of Nabari No Ou by Yuhki Kamatani. This is volume 1. And this is volume 2. So Nabari No Ou is a shonen manga series set in contemporary Japan about factions of holdover ninjas who are, or remnant ninja villages, who are fighting over the Shinra Bansho, a ninja art that has become a sort of sentient entity that incarnates in various individuals, and the Shinra Bansho has the ability to change the world because it's a unification of the elements. And the current possessor of the Shinra Bansho is Miharu Rokujo, the character on this cover, who is incredibly indifferent, apathetic. He just does not care. And he only cares because he's being inconvenienced. So he is being protected by what's left of the ninjas or shinobi of Banten village, where the small town where he lives. He's being pursued by the Kairoshu, a faction of ninja associated with the village of Iga, who want to use the Shinra Bansho for what appears to be benevolent ends, but can we really trust them? I mean, their methods, I don't think they're quite all that trustworthy. So Miharu begins to train in ninja techniques, and he's quite good at it. But he would really rather not be inconvenienced by the Shinra Bansho, so he would like to have it taken out. And so they go to another village, Fuma, where hopefully their village chief can help take it out. When they go, the village is under attack by members of the Kairoshu, including a young man who can fire bits of his life force into his targets and cripple them or kill them. This young man here. And that's pretty much where this first volume ends. I read the first volume of Nabari No Ou a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it, and I've been wanting to read the entire series ever since. Although I have seen the anime, which is fantastic. It's a whopper, particularly the ending. Oh boy, that ending. But I've never read the entire series, or the manga series, so I'm aiming to do that this year and into next year whenever I finish it. So, yeah, really, really enjoy this. Miharu is a little devil, and it's so delightful. And particularly how Volume 2 develops is just amazing. I love those scenes. It's so well done. And so sort of interesting. And particularly I like how you gradually see Miharu lose his indifference, how he begins to form friendships and even perhaps romantic attachments or romantic attachment. I'm looking forward to reading on. So I need to hurry it up and pick up more volumes of Nabari No Ou. So that's what I read this week, or bailed on, as the case may be. Before I talk about I think I'll talk about what I will be reading this coming reading week, and then I'll show you the paintings I did, because I also did some painting today too. So this weekend I'm planning on reading 11 Inch by Michal Witkowski and translated by W. Martin. 11 Inch is about two hustlers who travel Eastern and Central Europe in the waning years of the Cold War. One of the hustlers has an endowment for which the title is named after, and they just go on adventures. I've been wanting to read this novel since I first learned about it early last year, so see how I like it. And I also plan on reading Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. It's been on my radar for a while, and I will report back next week after I've read it. So that's my reading plan for next week. I might have a one book haul sometime next week, depending, or at least one of the books that are in my June book haul I will probably show you, because it's coming from Hyde Cottage. Steve Donahue sent me a book, so I'll probably talk a bit about it and try to read it, not this coming reading week, but the next, so that I can maybe try my hand at book reviewing. So now, moving on to the paintings I did. So this is what I did this past Monday. Oh, and do let me know how the picture showed up on the video. In case it doesn't turn out, I might, once I get around to getting it framed, I might bring it in and show you that way. And this is the one I worked on today. So yeah, I had quite a bit of fun doing that. Oh no. Okay, let's go knock that out. I don't need the calendar. I don't need the calculator either. There we go. Okay. So that's been my reading week and what I'll be reading next week. As far as video making goes next week, I want to do a few tags. I've been meaning to do a whole week's worth of tags, but I never quite get around to it. So I'll try to do some tags next week. Certainly one on Tuesday, maybe one on Thursday. And I also want to continue trying to do discussion videos. I've been trying to do them intermittently, and they aren't quite coming together. And that's kind of annoying me. But I'll keep at it, and hopefully I'll make some progress, and I'll have some discussion videos up next week. So anyway, BookTube, that's all I've got for this week. Thank you. Have a great evening and weekend, and I will see you next week. So until then, BookTube, thank you and stay safe.